Hey again, and welcome to this work methods part. This is a part where this is pure experience of me as an instructor. When I started teaching this type of stuff, I didn't realize the value of work method. Work method is how you're going to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. Are you going to take 22 steps to get there? Are you going to take one step to get there? And what techniques do you have for it to be more efficient? So I've got some simple tips and tricks for you, not very difficult, but they're going to help you work more efficiently, and you're going to have a lot less time lost inside of PowerPoint when you're trying to do some nice alignments and some good looking things. So let's run to that, right? So when it comes to work methods, right? First of all, you got to know your shortcuts. You got to know your shortcuts. I know tons of them, right? If you look at the files that I've given you, I have a cheat sheet on it with a bunch of shortcuts for you. But these are the 5 that you need to do, and I like to call them the gateway drug of shortcuts, right? Because if you start doing these 5, you get addicted and you don't want to stop. And I've never heard the sentence somebody say, "Oh, I used to do shortcuts, right? But but now I don't. It's too slow." Right? Because people, when they start doing shortcuts, they don't go back, right? So if you put your little pinky finger, right, and you put it on control, you'll notice that all these other fingers of yours are going to fall on Z, C, X, V, and A. They're right there on your keyboard together. Somebody thought about it, it seems, right? And these are all very useful. Undo, copy, paste, cut, and select all. You can live with these shortcuts, right? These are efficient, they're quick, and you need to learn them, and hopefully you start using shortcuts, right? And if you would play StarCraft, you'd know that. Jokes aside, let's move forward to the tips that you might not know, right? So you see here, I have control move object, and so that means if you have a shape and you hold control and you drag it out, it will create a second shape, a duplicate of it. And if you hold shift, it will keep the alignment so that it doesn't move at the wrong place. Let's go check what all that means, right? So I'm just going to leave my presentation here, and I'm going to use this slide right here. So you see I have a shape, and it's here, it's nice. And as I said, if I hold control, so I'm going to hold control on my mouse, you see I hold control, and look what it does. I can drag a copy of it. Very useful. But if I wanted to move this, and it was at the proper height, and I just wanted to move it to the corner here, but at the same height, that's when you use shift. Because if you don't use shift, you'll notice it's difficult for me to keep it at the same height as I move forward, right? Even if I would try very attentively, I could still not try to make it straight. But if you want to move it straight, that's when you hold shift. So you see I hold shift and then I drag it. And you see I can't drag it in a way which disaligns its position, right? And with this, it lets me moves it in a way where it's always going to stay well aligned. And that's really useful. But where it becomes a power combo is when you combine both. Not when you just hold control, not when you just hold shift, but when you hold control and shift. So check this out. I'm going to hold control and shift, and I'm going to drag a first piece here. And you see I'm going to put it in a space. And look what happened. I have a duplicate, and it's perfectly well aligned. So let's try another one. Drag another one. And look, PowerPoint gave little helpers at the bottom to show me that there's the same space in between. So I can keep doing this, but if you want to be even more fancy, you use that fancy shortcut I showed you, Control A. Selects all of them. Then you hold Control Shift and you drag another copy of it. Look at that. Look at that. And then I just try to make it so it says the same shape, the same width. You see there is a problem. Do you see the problem? It's because I've got that table of contents shape down here. I'm going to delete it so that it makes it better. So now I hit Control A. I have all of them picked. I then use shift, and then you see I get a helper to show me that I'm following the same distances throughout my my file. And you see how quickly I'm creating all of these, right? And I'm going to align them to the center. And how am I going to create another chunk at the bottom? Well, it's easy. I select all of them with Control A. I hold down Control Shift, and I drag a bunch of them down. And look at this. I created a grid of boxes, perfectly aligned without taking hundreds of minutes for it. I did it quickly. I can already imagine if I would have told all of you to do this without this, that you would have done what? You would have drew your shape, and then you would have copied and pasted it multiple times, right? Maybe not even with the shortcut. Maybe you would have not even used the shortcuts. You would just went right-click copy, and then right-click paste, and then do it again, right-click paste. And I don't know how you live your life if you do it that way. It's very difficult. But you see, then you would maybe try to do it this way, and you'd try to align them, and you'd realize how difficult it is to try to produce proper alignments once the shapes are not in the right position. Now I've only put 4, but what if the exercise was not 4 pieces, but 70 pieces? Then this would become very difficult. But if you know what you're doing and you're using Control Shift, check this out. I'm going to be able to do it really quickly. You see, Control Shift, I do it once. Control Shift, I do it again. I make sure I have the same alignment. Control A, Control Shift, drag another one, Control A, Control Shift, maybe drag it down or drag it to the side over here, right? I don't need all these ones. Delete them. Repick all of it. Control A, Control Shift, drag one down, right? Make sure the spacing is good. Control A, Control Shift, drag 2 down. Control A, Control Shift. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. And drag all of these ones down. And look, oops, sorry, drag all these ones down here. Doesn't seem to be happy. Maybe I shouldn't take all 4 of the lines here, and I should only take 3. So let's just, this is, using Control A is a lot of time saved, you'll notice, but sometimes you can't do it, and so then you just use a little bit less shapes and you take them all at once. And you see now, I created my grid of all of these boxes inside of my PowerPoint presentation in a really nice way. That's amazing. And I hope that you like this little chunk about PowerPoint methods and how to use these, right? I want you to know a bit more about PowerPoint. Like the fact that there is a slide sorter. It's this little button down here that gives you all of your slides, and it lets you organize your slides if you want them after, before, or somewhere else, right? You can see all of them quickly, and they're all there, all of your slides. So that's a nice little section to go to. What I also want you to know, oops, where am I going here? I also want you to know about the master views, and we're going to have a chunk on master views, so be ready for it. It's going to be super interesting. But the one I want you to know about is the arrange button, the selection pane and the arrange button. I'll show you what it is very quickly. The arrange button lets you arrange your shape to be in a certain position. So under the home tab, you have the arrange button. And if I go on arrange, I can go align, and I can say that I'd like you to be in the center. And you see, it will put it in the center of my PowerPoint. And if I do it, I can also do middle, and now it's in the middle. But this is because I've got 2 shapes. So if I insert a second one, right, and I change its color, and I select both, now if I say that I want them aligned, sorry, I'm pressing the wrong buttons, align to the middle, look what's going to happen. They get aligned to the middle. That's good. But what if I align center? Well, they become aligned together, not centered to the sheet, but centered to themselves. So this is how you have to think about it. If you've got one object, it will center to the slide. If you've got 2 objects or more, they'll center together. So if I wanted these 2 to stay in their respectful positions, but to be in the center of my file, I can't just do center like this and do center like this, because it's not in the middle of my presentation. If I want them both to stay like this and to be in the center, you have to select them both and group them. Because by grouping them, they become one entity. And by doing one entity, you can now say that you want them to be aligned to the center, and then aligned to the middle, and it's going to be straight in the middle of your sheet, and they're not going to align in itself. And that's how you can use the alignment features of arrange to align your things. If you have more problems with alignment, don't forget that under the View tab, you have the ruler, which gives you a ruler to work with measurements, grid lines that will give you a grid to your presentation, and guides. Guides are very useful. They're these little lines that you can use to align multiple things to them. So say I have a rectangle here, I want it aligned there, but I also have another one that's a triangle, and I want it aligned to the base. And you see, it's easy with a guide to align everything to that line. So if you're using guides, if you're using grids, if you're using your ruler, if you're using Control and Shift, if you're using alignment, you've got all these power features to save tons of time at making things look nice without having to, spend hours and hours trying to align everything inside of your presentation. So I hope you like this part about work methods, and that you're going to be using these techniques to save lots of time inside of your future presentations.